Taliban gaining city, key to Afghan politics. The slow and quiet fall of Kandahar, the country's second largest city, poses a complex new challenge for the NATO effort to stabilize Afghanistan, if there be such a thing. It is factoring prominently into discussions between General Stanley A. McChrystal, the overall U.S. and NATO commander, and his advisors about how many more troops to seek from Washington. Kandahar is at the top of the list, one senior U.S. military official in Afghanistan said. We simply do not have enough resources to address the challenges there. Kandahar is in many ways a microcosm of the challenges the United States faces in stabilizing Afghanistan. The city is filled with ineffective, corrupt government officials and police officers whom the governor calls looters and kidnappers. Unemployment is rampant. Municipal services are non-existent. Reconstruction projects have not changed many lives, and the lack of NATO forces has allowed insurgents or militants free rein. But it is also unique. It is bigger and more complicated than any other place in southern Afghanistan, and there is a growing belief among military commanders that it is more important to the overall counterinsurgency campaign than any other part of the country. Kandahar means Afghanistan, said the governor. The history of Afghanistan, the politics of Afghanistan, was always determined from Kandahar, and once again it will be determined from Kandahar. Increasing the troop level. For years, NATO's strategy had been to entrust corrupt and incompetent local police with principal responsibility for securing the dusty collection of neighborhoods here that are home to an estimated 800,000 people. But several senior officers now think that this approach no longer makes sense, that more troops are necessary to prevent the Taliban from further reclaiming the pivotal, important city. McChrystal will probably present the Pentagon with a range of options that will outline the hope for gains if additional troops are deployed, according to people familiar with the discussions. Of course, the ultimate decision rests with President Barack Obama, who must determine whether McChrystal's plan to mount a comprehensive counterinsurgency effort across the country, one that aims to arrest the loss of places such as Kandahar to the Taliban, merits sending more and more U.S. troops. So, just how many forces are needed in this city, and what exactly would they do, has become a matter of debate at the highest levels of the NATO military command and Kabul. There is some agreement that more Afghan soldiers are needed, but there are no spare units to be deployed, and with violence increasing in the country's previously stable north and west, commanders are very reluctant to pull troops from those areas. As a consequence, some officers maintain that NATO forces need to move into parts of the city. Other military officials in Afghanistan, including top leaders of the regional headquarters that encompasses Kandahar, contend that sending more foreign troops into the city would only pull in more Taliban fighters from rural areas, drawing NATO forces into dangerous urban combat. But even they acknowledge that there is a need for more special forces soldiers and military police who can supposedly train the local police force, as well as possibly more NATO troops on the city's outskirts. Residents say the level of Taliban activity in Kandahar can be deceiving to outsiders because the fighters' tactics are different here. Roadside bombs and suicide attacks are not the most commonly used weapons, largely because of the relative lack of foreign troops. Instead, it is paper and ink, and the assassin's bullet when the recipient of a warning letter does not comply. Taliban fighters have opted not to drive around in their trademark white pickup trucks, clad in black turbans. For now, they operate under the cover of darkness, prosecuting their intimidation campaign, with correspondence and traffic checkpoints aimed at making it clear to the residents, but they are everywhere. Some NATO officials think the insurgents are trying to so weaken the government, security forces, and relief agencies that they can one day assert full control over a city they are already dominating. "Nobody in this city feels safe," said one man, who now spends his days at home. The Taliban do not show their faces during the day, but everyone here knows that they are in charge. The Taliban reemerges. To the U.S. government and to many people here, the last Taliban holdouts in Kandahar appeared defeated. By December 2001, some fled across the desert to Pakistan. Others melted into the local population. After a few months of intensive special forces operations to apprehend al-Qaeda members, the U.S. military largely ignored Kandahar. And the Afghan president, Karzai, soon installed an iron-fisted tribal ally as governor. Convinced that he would maintain order, the United States scaled back troop levels. But of course, that didn't work at all. By 2005, as Taliban attacks were increasing in eastern Afghanistan, the United States ceded responsibility for security in Kandahar province to Canada, which sent approximately 2,500 troops to the area. And although Canada has allowed its forces to operate without some rules, but have limited the activities of other NATO members, Canadian commanders acknowledged that they did not have enough soldiers on the ground, while Taliban activity increased over the past 3 years. When Canadian troops conducted repeated missions to clear the Taliban or militants from areas around the city, there never were enough forces to stay to keep insurgents from returning. And yes, that seems to be a problem throughout Afghanistan. Not enough forces to hold. Canada did not have the resources to maintain a large presence in the city. That was left to the local police, mistrusting the police. It is the corruption of the police, and that alleged of senior government officials, that many Kandaharis say has been the principal reason for the Taliban's resurgence or return. Just as they did in the 1990s, residents say the Taliban is appealing not to a popular desire for religious reasons, but to demand for good governance. Part of the problem is that the police are ill-trained and ill-paid, driving them to graft or corruption. Another contributor, local leaders who have created a culture of impunity. Several U.S. lawmakers, including Vice President Biden, when he was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, have urged the president to dismiss his brother from the Kandahar Province Council. But U.S. and Canadian diplomats have not pressed the matter because the brother has given valuable intelligence, so they say, to the U.S. military. It's better when you are with the police, said one man. If you're not here, the only time we see them is when they want bribes. Or they're Taliban. They're here all the time, said the man. Sometimes they set up checkpoints at night. But, he said, they at least never ask us for money. So then, what will it take to fix Kandahar? It's really almost impossible to say. There's so many different elements to it. And what is there to win? Again, what is there to win in Afghanistan? Exactly. How long will it take to win? That is a very good question. Once again, these are more signs of the end times transition days. Transition is happening day by day all around the world.